Hi there. How y'all doing? Good. My name is Patrick. This piece is kind of a smattering of all the things that make sense and don't make sense about relationships with parents, my dad. Just going to say the poem without giving too much introduction. When I was a baby, you would hold my head to the spot where your neck meets your collarbone and make this sound somewhere in between a gurgle and a cooing. These times, right before I fall asleep, sometimes I hear it. It sounds like, a father whale speaking to his son without language. An ancient bubbling life fluids, seamless connection, so easy without the burden of words. You had early immersion in the nonverbal world when at 10 years old, you fell from the top of a windmill in Wahoo, Nebraska. To recover, they wrapped your torso in a body cast for the better part of a year and encased you in rigid, flinching shyness for the rest of your life. Hiding in bathrooms during family weddings as long as I can remember, a lesson taught by your mother in the 1950s when she said to her son, "You are such a coward." She didn't bat an eye as bone chipped off your forehead, her words an iron wrought stamp pounded through skin for you to lug around after your empty-handed return when you panicked at a youth-frenzied bicycle giveaway at the local church. Her words were all it took for you to think to yourself in all honesty, "Well, I guess I am a coward." You didn't blink. When I was 13 and talking shit about nerds, you told me they didn't have the word nerd when you were a kid, but you sure would have been him. Later that day, you told me your first sacred rule. No one has the right to tell you how to be, and you don't have the right to tell anyone else how to be. Your equating nerd and coward might seem simple enough, though the word enigma and father might as well have been the same in my growing up. There was one thing I was sure of when it came to you. A nuclear holocaust would not have kept you from making it to work each morning. 6 days a week, you have gone faithfully to your job simply because you wanted to. What a novel idea. As a boy, all I saw was the steady tearing of graph paper every night under the watchful glow of the television. Your methodical separating of these sheets was a signal fire of stability, and that nuclear holocaust reference is a little bit more appropriate as your job is analyzing spy satellite radar data. When they began to phase you into early retirement, I witnessed time-lapse filming morph your face like gray Play-Doh, your back curled inward on itself, trying to snuff out the fire in your chest while your bosses poured tar-filled protocol over pure dedication to a life's work without the passion they were smothering. Mom and I worked our brains into wet cement trying to figure out something to replace this cornerstone in your foundation. This slow decay went on for a year when I came home to visit, expecting to find the walking skeleton you were slowly embodying, and Mom told me the news. That you had decided to create a consulting firm, independent of Northrop Grumman, where you could work happily into infinity. I witnessed a miracle that day. It was like a fine-toothed comb had scraped the wrinkles from your face, and a rainbow sandstorm had blasted your skin back into vibrancy. This return to life watered the secret garden you had unknowingly planted in my veins. It sprouted the second sacred rule you had been telling me since I was old enough to remember anything. It is very important to find something you love and to do that for the rest of your life. You grew up in a Midwestern Protestant home where the cultural verbal palette was without the nurturance needed to paint passion and connection into life. For instance, in 1950, Wahoo, Nebraska, if someone asked you how you were feeling, they meant, "How does the air temperature feel on your skin?" You were always more comfortable shaking my hand than hugging. And this is probably the norm amongst fathers and sons, though I've always been painfully aware of the chasm between you and the world. To say I resented this Grand Canyon between us is not a profoundly unique statement, as lack of emotional connection between fathers and sons is about as common as tourists at the Grand Canyon. To say a son resents his father is to quote mythology. To say a son learned how to see the strength in his father is the rite of passage into manhood these days. Perhaps one of the greatest lessons you gave me was the wide berth in figuring out life for myself. And my anchor in the depth of your emotional absence was pulled up another mark when I was 16 years old. Mom brought attention to a missing link in our family chain. My brother, conceived with Down syndrome and not allowed to leave the womb. Mom said it was her choice. She felt a responsibility to me, her healthy child, who breathed in springtime without his seasonal growth obstructed by an extra chromosome. But your steel girder moral code would not allow you to choose abortion. She insisted. You squirmed in your flesh, scratched holes in your scalp, curled away from the passion between you and Mom's. This is why I have never seen your mouths open into each other in a life-giving kiss. You have never forgiven yourself for the death you thought you created, have left part of yourself on top of that wingman to turn in cycles for eternity. And sometimes, right when I wake up in the morning, on the other side of the gurgle cooing you put me to sleep with, I can see your marooned passion clinging to the eternally turning blades, cycling in a slow-motion limbo over the plains of Wahoo, Nebraska.